Welcome back to the Delegation Download. If you've been with us through Series 1, you know that we have spent a lot of time talking delegation, operations, executive support, and what actually happens behind the scenes of growing a business. As we close out this series, we wanted to slow things down a bit and reflect. So we're calling this our Lessons Learned, where we're answering questions that we've been asked, questions that we wish people would ask, and conversations we know business owners are already having in their heads. Some of these questions came from our listeners directly, some came straight from our experiences about this series topic, and all of them are rooted in real life. So today is less about teaching and more about talking about it. So let's get into it.
Yeah, let's do
So,
it.
Nichole, one of the questions that that has been coming up for me as I've been re listening to our series, what is something that you believed about delegation before starting our podcast that you'd now challenge or reframe? Obviously, let me just hold on. Let me back up a little bit. So, for those of you who don't know, Nichole has been spearheading this entire podcast herself from the idea to the launch to the recording. She has truly managed it all by choice.
Yeah.
And there has definitely been some lessons learned along the way.
Yes.
So I think in the spirit of delegation, I want to hear, Nichole, your thoughts on delegating in a podcast frame.
Yeah. As an EA working with Elevate, I know the concept of delegation. I understand it. I can talk about it. I can preach about it. I can do all of the things. But just like several business owners, when it came to the podcast, I really wanted to make sure that I knew what I was doing in all of the tasks that needed to be done for the podcast before I handed it off to somebody. Because if something broke along the way, at that point, if I had just handed it off, I wouldn't even know how to fix it. And so for myself, I held on to things very tightly. We started recording all of these episodes back in July of 2025, believe it or not. And here we are. It is the end of January in 2026, and I still have not delegated anything away from my plate with this podcast. And so I think for me, again, I know what delegation is all about. I know how it can benefit a business owner. I know how it can benefit a leader in a company. But it is truly a mindset shift. I had to be okay with saying, okay, I cannot do every single part of this. I have to delegate it out to somebody. And there are still going to be unknowns. There are still going to be portions of it that are going to break, and I don't know how to fix it. And that has to be okay because there's going to be another set of eyes, another set of hands that are there to help fix whatever the gap is or troubleshoot alongside me. And I don't have to own it entirely. I can work on other aspects of the podcast, building out the next series, reaching out to guests, all of those things that come along with having a podcast. So I don't think it's necessarily that I didn't believe something before the podcast. I think now more so than before, I understand the power of delegation because I have been in this place where their to-do list was longer than I could manage on my own. And so I had to be able, and I have to be able to delegate the things that I can to somebody else to do it the same or even better than I can do it at this very moment by myself.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that it's such a unique experience that I have also been in where I was really good at helping people delegate to me, building the trust and the how when I was sitting on the other end of it. And then when I
Hmm.
started Elevate, which is very similar to what you're describing with when you own or started the podcast, I think when it's your baby, it's a lot different. It feels a lot
Hmm.
different to hand things off than it does when you're on the other side of it. So it's one of those easier said than done things, right? When you're in
100%.
that person's shoes. But I think what I'm also hearing you say is there's so much thought around, I can't delegate it until I've got the process right and I know all the things and all of that. And I think that is true to a point, but I think sometimes maybe things are held on to for too long because they need the process to be perfect. But the process won't sometimes, if it's too complicated or just too much on your plate, it won't be perfect while you're holding on to it because you just can't get it perfect. And you do need someone else to help you perfect the process. So I think sometimes, and where I think you're at, is that you know enough about what you want and how you want it overall. While you might not have all the details and all the things down pat exactly how you want it to be, you know enough and you feel confident enough to describe what you want to someone in order to have it. And you speak the language well enough that someone else could take it. And like you said, it might even be better having someone in there with a new, fresh set of eyes and a new ideas and all of that. So I think that's the big thing with delegation is you don't have to hold on to it so long until it's perfectly written down and documented. You just got to hold on to it long enough to know the vision and that, like what success looks like and the nuances along the way.
Right. Like, I know what the outcome is. I know what I need to have happen at the end of the day when an episode goes live.
Mhm.
And I have the bones, right? That's all you need to start is the bones. You can figure out every other little piece along the way as you go, and I can delegate that to somebody else and they can do the research and they can do the troubleshooting. I had to do it. I had to do the delegating. And that was the hard part.
Yeah. Yeah,
So
absolutely.
now, I know that there have been times where I have been overwhelmed. I'm not going to lie. I'm going to be very transparent, very overwhelmed with the whole podcasting process. And I'm sure, like many, many business owners, that comes with any task that you're doing in business, whether it is who knows what it is, but there's going to be general overwhelm across all the boards. So, one of the questions that I go back to re listening to things and just from talking to clients in the past is like, when do you know that you're ready to delegate? Not just the overwhelmed feeling that you're feeling because you have so many things on your plate, but when do you actually know that you're ready to delegate versus the feeling of being overwhelmed?
Yeah, and I think they go so hand in hand that it could be both, but there also are times where it isn't. It is just one or the other.
Hmm.
So I think I'm just trying to think of like the best way to describe this because it is they are so intertwined.
Hmm.
So I think that for when you're ready to delegate versus that feeling, the feeling of overwhelm is just the list is so long that there's just too much that people need me for too much. There's just so much going on that it is impossible for you to get it all done in a day. You're burning out. The brain fog is real. All of that. So all of those feelings could just be overwhelm. Now the question of how do you know if I need to delegate? That is more of an exercise I think that you need to go through, and actually something that I did the other day because my list was very long that I couldn't even make sense of it. And I really just needed to get it all organized into one place. And I started categorizing them. I started like looking at the buckets of the business, picking what all of these things that I own right now, that whether or not it is me, but it's on my brain. It is taking up space. It is taking up paper on my desk. It is taking up my inbox, whatever it might be. I just really organized it and I picked what area of the business does this thing belong in. And then I asked myself, does this have to be done by me? So I have like a do, delegate, or a ditch. Is this just like, get rid of it? Don't even stop thinking about it. Just erase it. And I categorized that. And then I also I used the Eisenhower matrix actually for myself to know, is it urgent and important? Is it not urgent, but it's important, vice and et cetera. And that really helped me prioritize and ask myself real questions of, and I marked to myself too, okay, maybe this is a future delegation. I want to do it first the first time. So again, like we just talked about, I just want to understand what exactly is needed, or it's been a while since I've done it, so I really couldn't explain it well enough to give it to somebody. So I'm going to do it again. But the next time I do it, I'm going to record myself doing it and I'm going to delegate it. So I really just got myself organized. And I think that that process of going from overwhelmed to having a clear picture of what can be delegated is really relieving. So for me, I know that when my list is too long and I am becoming the bottleneck for when half that list is things that, like, for example, you guys at Elevate are trying to move the needle forward on all these projects, and half of my list is things that you need me to do or review or we need to talk about, it's telling me that it's time to delegate. There's too much on my plate. I need to be able to focus on those things that you guys need my leadership decision on, and I am being bogged down by way too many maybe admin related things or things that, just don't have to be done by me. So that's kind of my tell is that I think the feeling overwhelm is the feeling that maybe tells you to look at, do I need to delegate? And then those
Hmm.
are some of the questions that you can probably answer to identify if you're ready. And you need to be ready to give up a little bit of control. Know that you're confident enough in the what you want it to look like in the end in order to describe it to someone, and
Right.
you're willing and trusting enough of them to figure out the how and all of that. And so I think that's another tell as well.
Now, when you were making your list of things that you needed to do and putting them in your buckets, how did you determine what was delegatable versus what wasn't? What was like
Yeah, great
the key
question.
sign that you saw when you're building out these lists that you were like, I don't, this is a ditch because I don't need to touch this. This can be done by somebody else.
Yeah, so if it was a ditch, I actually just ditched it completely off my list and I put it in what I call my parking lot list. It just I want to know that I have it somewhere, but it does not need a due date in the near future. But now I know I have it somewhere. Makes me feel better. So that's the ditch. And then the delegate is I really just ask myself simply like this doesn't have to be done by me. There's plenty of people on my team who are really strong at so many things and it isn't necessarily a strength of mine and or it just my strengths are better served elsewhere versus the time that this might take. And I think that being able to look at my team and the people that I trust that are just as excited about everything we do here and maybe geek out on certain things and all of that. Like, I just kind of think of all that in mind of, sure, I could do that. The question is never, can I do this? Of course I can. I have the ability. But if I were to look at all of the things that I have to do on my plate, is this really something that should take an hour of my day, for example? Or is it better spent with someone else who can and maybe loves doing this?
Yeah,
So
absolutely.
but it truthfully, if I'm being honest, the amount of backlog on that day that I got myself organized, you guys, I think I spent half my day just I forced myself because that feeling of overwhelm was real and the overwhelm sometimes can get you stuck. I wasn't moving. I was sitting here. I'm sure like a lot of people know this feeling of just you're sitting and actually not doing really anything. You are, but what? Probably the really unimportant things because you can't make sense of the list. And so
Hmm.
I forced myself to sit down and just get it all into one place and ask all of those questions. And as soon as they were all done in our project management tool, I was able to filter it and sort it in a way that is like, all right, here clearly, here's what you do next, Ashley. You know? So
Well, I think you had mentioned it. I think we mentioned it on an episode, but like sometimes your CEO days just need to be where you sit down and see exactly what you need to do. Like what is still pending? Is it just a checklist item that's on your list? Delegate that off. If it's something that you don't need your hands on, delegate it. Just get rid of it. Have somebody else do it for you and know that it's going to be done.
yeah, and I think we've talked about it before. It's also I have to remind myself that, like I said, I trust everybody to get it done. I know we have so many skill sets on our team, and I have to remember that I'm also building confidence. Every time I delegate something that usually would be an Ashley thing, if I ask someone else on the team, hey, I'd love for you to help me on this, that builds confidence and ownership in our to be able for them to be able to say they helped, even if it's a small, big, whatever size thing for them to be able to finish their day, their week, to say they made a difference in what we're doing together is great. It feels good. So there's no reason not to. It's just a matter of getting in the habit. And I think that feeling of overwhelm is a really good like reminder of how important it is. Okay. So, one of the questions that we have had is, and this comes up a lot actually in my clarity calls that I have with clients, and it's very related to what we've talked about so far is how much structure do I need before bringing in an EA or ops support, someone at Elevate, right? Who can help me with the back end. We have a lot of clients who are unsure of, but am I ready enough? How much structure do I need? So, as someone who has stepped into many a business,
Hmm.
what would you say as far as that goes?
I don't think it's so much the structure that you need. You need a plan. Like you need to have a strategy for me to come in and help with. Like I can step in. If you have an end goal, I can help get you there, but I can't determine your end goal. That's not something that I do as an EA. I can help you get there by supporting you with whatever needs to be off of your plate. I can help support you with creating simple processes, figuring out the workflow that maybe work best or what efficiencies can be done within a workflow that you're already using. So I don't think it's so much a structure that needs to be there. Obviously, you need to have your platforms, you need to have your systems. Sometimes you don't even need to have your system. Sometimes we can do the research for you and say, you know what, I think that this might be a great option for you. I've used it with another client before. We can lean on our experience, our team members' experience, and say, we've had another team member who has worked on a project like this before, and this is what they used. This was the outcome. Almost give like a case study, right, to the clients and say, this has worked great before. I think you might want to look into this. So it's not so much the structure that's needed, it's the plan, does a client that I'm working with have a plan? What is their end goal? And how can I support them getting to that end goal? What platforms might we need? What platforms are they already using? Is there something that maybe there's an efficiency? Maybe we can use one platform that's doing the same thing that three of them that they have right now is. So one, that's limiting the cost that they have on a month to month because they're not paying for three platforms now. Two, it's also efficient. So we're not having to go to three different platforms to grab one piece of information. So again, I don't necessarily think that it's the structure that's needed. I think it's the strategic plan that's needed. And that comes with the thought of the business owner, that comes with working with you for strategic mapping, figuring out where they want to be so that we can help support them get there we can support them by helping them get there with the tasks that they can delegate to us that are within our scope.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that as far as structure goes too, that's why we in our onboarding, I have a strategy call with them at onboarding before they even get started with their EA in order to, I call it like looking under the hood of their business. I want to see, how do you operate? How do you communicate? What's important to you? What are your goals? What is your business as far like detailed? What products and services and all of that do you provide? How do you provide them? What does that journey look like for your customers? There's so much that I uncover. I also talk about how's your balance as a founder? Can we help you there personally and professionally balance? So there's so many things that I do in that call and that basically, I mean, it just clicked for me actually as you were talking that really I'm looking for what structure do you have and what structure do you need? So I
Hmm.
think as long as, like you said, there is some sort of foundation, your vision and your mission are clear in the business, like what you are and why you're doing it and how you're doing it is on a strong foundation. I think the rest we can handle. So, and that's as long as it's identified, right? Which is part of our process here. So I agree. Okay. I have another fun question. So, what would you call a red flag of that tells you a support role is not set up for success? So when someone says, I need support, but it's actually, there is a certain red flag that they're truly actually not ready to have support.
Yeah. So piggybacking on what I said before, you don't have a goal. Like you don't know what your end game is. You have no idea where you want your business to go. You have no idea what you want the next year to hold. And so that is a red flag that you don't know where I can't help you if you don't know where you want to go. I think
Uh-huh.
another thing that a lot of and we've had this happen before is you have clients come in and they say, I need admin support. And then you start working with them and you come to realize like it's not actually admin support that you need because your goal is not to have operation and admin support. Your goal is marketing. And that just is not what we do. And that's okay. But let us help you find the person that can support you with that. So the red flag is like, is this within scope? Are the things that you're delegating to me something that I can handle within the scope of my role? Because if they're not, maybe I'm not the right fit at this time. That doesn't mean that you're not going to need admin and ops support in the future. It might just mean that you don't need admin and ops support right now because your needs are in a different bucket. They're not in the administrative and the operational side of your business. You need to grow your business from a marketing standpoint. And that just isn't that's not something that we do here at Elevate, but we can certainly point you in the right direction, introduce you to the right people who are going to make those dreams come to life.
Yeah, I think that having clear role and responsibilities, at least from a super high level of these are the areas I need, or these are
Mhm.
the general processes, it doesn't have to be super specific. It's great when it is, but it doesn't have to be. But it is important that you are looking for the right person for the right seat that you need.
Absolutely. So, we actually have a question from a listener. So, I'm really excited to ask this to you. Um, the question is burnout keeps coming up as a consequence of holding too much. Looking back, were there subtle signs you wish you had paid attention to sooner before things felt unsustainable?
Yeah, I actually this is a great question because we talk about burnout a lot, and I've been there. I've been there more times than I can count, and more times than I wish upon anyone else.
Mhm.
And traditionally, like through and through, I did the Clifton Strengths. Responsibility is one of my top ones, and that just means I naturally take on responsibility. And what happens is I take it on, take it on, take it on until I burn out, and that I have become much more aware of the signs of burning out for myself, and I think that might look different for everybody, but I think that's key is to make sure that you figure out what your signs are, that you
Mhm.
are going to that you're starting to feel burnout. So that way you can fix it before it happens. So like for me the other day, this what I just mentioned, I just did this last week, organizing my list. And because I could sense burnout coming. I could sense the so for me, I'll tell you my subtle signs. So one is I definitely become snappier with my kids. It's like I have no brain space for patience. I am a lot more focused on like getting things organized and done and all of that instead of having fun and laughing. And so when I am not feeling lighter and go with the flow, when I am more like get this done, then this done, then this done, that's when I know at work I'm too burnt out. And so that's a big tell for me. The other tell is what I just mentioned earlier. I'm just clicking around too much. Your brain is not meant to switch roles, hats, if you will, as many times in a day as we sometimes do. And so if I
Mhm.
am suddenly not clear in what I'm doing, and so I'm just bouncing from one thing to another, that's another sign that I am nearing burnout because I also will just be so exhausted by the end of the day and really look back and be like, I didn't really like get a whole thing done. Right. I got a bunch of
Mhm.
little stuff, and I think that that's another sign. So I think just really being aware, we've all been there. We can look back and say, I was burnout at this time. Try to think to yourself, how was I feeling? How was I acting leading up to that? So I think just that is so important and just really being aware of it. And honestly, maybe having it be where, because I feel like we're pretty good at this with each other, having someone who just knows you and is like, hey, you should take a day off.
Mhm.
And we say it in love. We say it because also we don't want, the people we care about to feel that way. And I know that I appreciate it, and so take a day. You don't have to go on vacation because also we know that sometimes vacations are just more work. And so sometimes it's just
Yes.
take a day off to go play. Just go do whatever it is that you feel like doing. If it is being a couch potato or maybe it's going and just shopping for the day. I don't know, whatever it is, to the park with your kids, just taking a day.
Well, and I think overwhelm, it's not just a feeling. Once you get to that point where you're so overwhelmed that you're starting to feel burnout, it starts to show in your face. Like you can hop on a call and somebody's going to be like, they've hit it. We're at that point. Like cameras off, people. We're canceling this meeting. You need to go take a nap. You don't need to work on anything today. But I hear what you're saying. Like it's not it doesn't just affect work burnout. It affects all aspects of your life. And I think something for me that I typically do when I'm like nearing that edge of overwhelm or burnout is I start avoiding big things even when it has to do with work. And I just work on the small tasks that I know will give me that instant satisfaction of it's done, just so that something else is checked off my list, but I'm not actually making a substantial impact. Yes, I'm getting things done. Yes, things are moving forward very slowly, but they're moving forward. But I don't have the bandwidth nor the brain space to handle something big. So I just focus on the tiny things that feel within my control and feel manageable at that very moment because I am overwhelmed. And I think that's something that business owners do as well. It's like, this seems easier. I'm going to stick with this. I'm not going to do the big thing right now because that feels too heavy. I just don't have the mental space for that.
Yeah, I think it's exactly that. It's the brain space, noticing when and how you tend to behave, the things that you tend to do
Mhm.
when your brain space is running low before you even realize it. So, yeah, I think when you tend to just do that, all the small things, that's for sure a sign that you don't have enough space in your head to tackle a large project
Mhm.
because you've got too much going on. So, I know we've talked a lot about that internally on strategies that we're doing for each other because we started noticing it in each other like, "Hey guys, I know we're super excited about all these 17 things we want to do this quarter, but we've tried this and it's not working. So let's simplify a little bit and allow
Mhm.
us each to only focus on one thing at a time and actually finish it because I think that in the moment, that triage mode of just doing all the little things, they might be necessary for a short period of time. But when that becomes the norm, it starts to make you lose motivation and enjoyment and all that. So I will say that I appreciate and I think there's value in having people around you, not only noticing it in yourself, but having people around you who also notice it in you and are willing to lovingly call it out because they care for you. I think that's really important. So,
Yeah, no, it's a huge part of having a team, right? You can't do it by
yes.
yourself. And when you have a team, the entire team has to look out for each other. And that's just one way that we do it here at Elevate. So here's another question that we got from a listener. So many leaders want to delegate outcomes instead of methods, but still feel activated when things don't get done the way that they would do them. How do you suggest navigating the tension without slipping into micromanaging?
So, I think I tell clients this often that micromanaging is, I think we all have the capability to do it without even realizing.
Hmm.
And what I truly have seen in micromanaging is the need for control. And I think that, and not just control of the how things get done, but more of like controlling the outcome. Like you just want to make sure it goes exactly the way you're envisioning. And so you tend to micromanage. You're holding on to it for too much. You have trouble letting it go. And so what I have told our clients is when you delegate something, and if this is something that you know you're very nervous about delegating, or you have this sense of anxiety when you're delegating it, not because of the person, you trust them, but for some reason it's feeling really hard to hand your baby over, right? I think that what I say is break down the milestones. Like let's just talk something simple, like create a slide deck for me. So you might say something like, I want you to create this slide deck. Here's how I typically do it. Whether you describe it, you have a video, you whatever it might be. Describe the outcome just like we have advised how to do, but set a milestone on create a couple and then send it to me for review. Or it could also look like maybe it's a larger project and it's going to be, hey, let's make sure we touch base on this every, Tuesday, Thursday. We're going to have a 15-minute check-in. Whatever amount of communication feels good to you for touch points, for check-ins, is what you need to just set that tone from the start and let them know that whatever these touch points are, this is also the touch point for them to come to you for questions and an opportunity that you're letting them know in advance, I'm going to be giving you feedback at these touch points. Because sometimes I think micromanaging, what we think of when we think of micromanaging is unwelcome feedback. And I think that when you are giving someone something, if you're setting the tone to say, okay, this is really important to me and I trust you to get it done. I just want to make sure that we're on the same page throughout. And we are going to figure this out together. You're setting the tone for, yes, there's going to be touch points and feedback, and you're going to be reviewing it a lot more than maybe necessary, let's just say. But it is necessary because then the next time you go to delegate something just as like important to you, you might those touch points might be a little bit less because now you guys have figured out your language and all of that. So that would be my suggestion is just set the tone in advance to say this is really important to you. So you're going to preset times to touch base and see how things are going along the way. And
Hmm.
questions and feedback are going to happen both ways because together we're going to make this a beautiful thing.
Right. Yeah. And it's something you said sparked a question in my own head. When it is a time sensitive task, and you've got a deadline that has to be done. And I do this, I've done this myself. I've had this happen to me, and it's not anybody's fault because when it's time sensitive, you're like, this has to get done. We need to do this right now. What would be your suggestion to business owners when it is a time sensitive task? Let's say it's Monday, this has to be done by Thursday, and they are just delegating it to their support person. What is your suggestion on how to avoid the micromanagement? Because you don't have a lot of time to answer questions. You don't have a lot of time to give feedback. You just need it done because it's time sensitive. What would your suggestion and feedback be there?
Yeah, I'd be interested. You said had this experience. I'd be interested to hear the good and bad that have come of those situations as well. But I would say for me, my initial response to that would be if there's not a way for you to get it done yourself and you have to delegate it and there is a quick turnaround, you have to just let it go. You have to just know I can trust this person. If I cannot get it done myself and I need someone to help me, then I need to be willing to let go of the possible outcome, right?
Hmm.
And when I say that, I don't mean your instructions and your vision of what done looks like is very important. So you still have to say and do that, but you do need to be willing to know that control might be out of your hands for this. That being said, if there is space to say, hey, at the end of every day, can you just let me know what you've done so far? That kind of thing, then I would say definitely build in as much touch points as possible in those quick turnarounds. As far as feedback and all of that, there's so many tools now that you can send a Slack video with feedback. You can work offline, right? You don't have to always have a a Zoom setup to review and discuss and all that, but they're in a quick turnaround. I think it does just a little bit of control does have to be released.
Yeah. So I'll give my personal take on this because I have had this happen. It and there it's not so much that there was good, bad, and ugly. It was more so that the task it came up out of nowhere at nobody's fault.
Mm,
The client needed support on it, and so it was delegated to me. I did have a lot of questions, and I had been working with this client, so we had already had the trust built there. There was already a relationship, a partnership that was built. So it was very easy for me as an EA to go and say, hey, these are the immediate questions I have before I start working on this. What information do I need to include on this spreadsheet? Where do I find the information? And how quickly do you need this? Like I know it's due Thursday, but do you need to send it to somebody before Thursday?
mhm,
Or do you want to review it before Thursday? And it was very much like you said, there were touch points. I was sending constant communication on where I was at, questions I had. And so I think it's not just for the business owners, but it's for the person that's supporting them as well. Don't be afraid to ask those questions. Don't be afraid to level up and say, I need this information in order to make this a success. I can't support you without it. I can't get this done without the information from you. And if you have to send four reminders that you need an answer to a question, it's okay to send those reminders to get this project done and really be an impact in the business that you're supporting. And so we looked at it afterwards and I was like, can I get feedback? Like, did I do this properly? Should I have done it differently? If this comes up in the future, how should I fix it or how
mhm,
should I do it? And we were able to navigate it, but it was one of those things where I was sweating bullets. I was like, I don't know if I'm gonna get this done. I don't know if it's gonna be done the right way. I don't know if they're gonna be mad at me. I don't know how the person that's gonna receive this is gonna be. But I mean, in the end, there were lessons learned and there were also celebrations. We got it done. We got it done in
mhm.
the time frame that we had available. And moving forward, I knew what was expected of me if this should ever come up again. And it did. And so, but we had a plan moving forward because of the communication that we had.
Yeah, and I think you brought up a great point, and it fits today's episode title of Lessons Learned. I think after a delegation to a delegated project to
Mhm.
someone, you should absolutely. We already talked about having feedback and milestone opportunities throughout, but you should absolutely touch base afterwards and have a lessons learned to do exactly what you just said. Celebrate what worked really well and celebrate what didn't and what to fix
Mhm.
next time. But always use we language, right? Not you did this wrong, you did that wrong. You want to come into it like, hey, we tried doing updates like this, but I feel like they were clunky. Did you feel that way? What do you think would work better next time? It's okay. And we're human and every time it's different and all. So it is important to take a moment to make sure you give them kudos where kudos are deserved. Make sure that they're really clear about what worked well for you, what was successful, and what wasn't, and problem solve that together.
Right. Absolutely. I think that overall, lessons learned from our podcast series and just tasks and life in general are a very important part of moving forward and momentum and growth with any aspect of life. So, as we wrap up today's conversation, this is your reminder that delegation, support, and systems are not about perfection, they're about progress. And this lessons learned episode will be shaped by this was shaped by real questions, real experiences, and real conversations. And if something that we talked about today sparked a thought or a question, we want to hear it. DM us on Instagram, send us a comment on whatever platform you're listening to us on. We'd love to touch base and connect. You can submit your questions, your topics that you want us to unpack, or even things that you're struggling to say out loud. We're here to support you through whatever it may be. But thanks for being here, for listening, and for building the business that actually supports your life and does not consume it. We'll see you on the next episode of the Delegation Download. And remember, you've got this.